All right, let's do it. Is it doing it?
We're live. Got the live
Welcome to
counter
the
going.
Church of Mabus radio show. Wait, hold on. An error occurred. Did it go live?
It's
Okay, it
saying
says
live
it's
on my
live.
end.
All right, for some reason it said in the chat room an error occurred, but it seems okay now. All right, welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:06 p.m. Central, coming to you live from Florida. Jay, where are you at?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
You moved. And then our
Yes,
guest
and
is
so
Trebha Cooper. Where are you at, Trebha?
I'm in
France.
Rennes, southwest France.
Nice. Well, everybody, you're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7. We got some good shows that started on TV I got to catch up with. Doom Patrol started a new one. There's 3 released, and then they come out once a week. Creep Show started. Got to get into that. Creep Show for sure. That's on Shudder. And there's something else, but I forgot. But those 2 I got to do. Oh, another one, Midnight Mass, starts, and that's by that Mike Flanagan that was on Netflix and did a lot of good Stephen King stuff. He did that Shining sequel, Doctor Sleep, and all that stuff. So, gonna have some good ones coming up for Halloween. Oh, there's a Chucky series starting on Sci-Fi.
oh no,
Comes Chucky. It's by Don Mancini, the guy that made Chucky. So that should be good, hopefully. There's also a Night of the Living Dead series coming, or Day of the Living Dead, that's sanctioned by the Romero people, and that'll be on Sci-Fi. So hopefully they don't suck, but we'll check them out. So Jay's in his new office.
yeah, I got a new roll top desk this afternoon. My buddy came up from his work early, and we grabbed it. $599 desk. Got it for $1.25.
$1.25. Where'd you steal it?
125. Well, she wanted to get rid of it, and then no one was buying it, and I was the first one to ask for it. And this afternoon, she got 4 more offers on it, but I was already on my way to get it. So
for $1.25.
$125.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? It's like, who else did the other people
would have been a
offer?
really good deal. But no,
What else did the other people offer?
I don't know. I don't.
$1.50.
Who cares? It's in my office.
Well, everybody, I'm here to inform you I got the jab, the Bill Gates Biden 666 nanobot Antichrist mark is in me now. I'm kidding, of course. I'm okay. It hurt my arm a lot, but I got to get the second one. That's the one they say will mess you up a little, but it just depends. I've heard other people say it didn't do anything to them. So I got the jab. Went to Walmart and got the jab, baby.
Which
Walmart.
one did you get? The Merck or the Johnson & Johnson?
The Pfizer.
The Pfizer one? Okay.
Yeah, that's why we got such good reception tonight, because I got those nanobots. I got the 5G. Well, I didn't really want to do it. I just don't. I'm a testicular cancer survivor. I saw some story with some kid had that and he got it and croaked, and I've seen all kinds of other stories about people croaking. I'm like, I ain't croaking, I got enough problems right now. I don't want to croak like that. Then Robert David Steele, former CIA, was on the show, and of course he said it was a hoax, and now on his Wikipedia it says die from COVID, and the line up says thought it was a hoax. That's just a sad way. I don't want to die, really.
Did you say also he got the shot too?
I don't think he did.
Okay.
He wanted alternative treatment at the hospital. I don't know. He died. That's all I know. It's weird because I saw this right-wing guy, Benjamin Fulford, saying that the pandemic is a hoax, but he does videos with Robert David Steele all the time, and Robert David Steele's now dead from COVID. So, and he just wrote this. So it's just some of these people confuse the hell out of me. Like,
well, I don't think it's a hoax, but I don't think it's the pandemic they want it to be or trying to make it out to be. If you look at, when we've talked about this on the show before, if we look at the Spanish flu in the 1890s, early 1900s, it killed 50 million people. We're only at 4 million so far in the 2 years we're into this. So we're not near the numbers of the flu.
That's all.
Well, more people have died from cancer.
Say that again?
More people have died from cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In that period of time than have died from COVID.
Mm-hmm. Cancer is way more of a pandemic than COVID has been so far.
Yeah.
Been there, done that one too. So, well, Trebha, where were you born?
I was born in Hull, East Yorkshire, in England, in 1951.
Awesome. So you're what do you consider yourself, like British, or you're what do you consider yourself?
Well, my mother was from an Irish family. My father's from a Scottish family. So I'm in between Irish Scottish, if you like.
Cool. I got a lot of that in my DNA, like at least like 40% of a bunch of those. So for sure, but
well, that's one good thing with the DNA. Once all the facts and reality of DNA comes out, we'll all find that we're all interrelated anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said that before in the way past. I mean, there's so many people on the planet, and we've gotten to the point where the planet is smaller. We can interact with more people from further away areas. That almost everybody is part something.
Yeah, exactly.
So Trebha, I know I saw in your bio and stuff, you talked about things like wizardry. I mean, we've had guests on about that, very serious guests about that. So what can you tell us about some of that history?
Well, I'll have to go back to my grandfather.
Okay.
And what one day he was he worked in a forge. He was a blacksmith, and he told me one day. He says, I was talking to him about our ancestors and everything. He says, "Oh, you've got to realise you come from a long line of 7 sons, and your ancestors were wizards." And it wasn't until my friend looked in my ancestry and found out that, going back to an ancestor of mine that came from Ireland in 1509 in King Swinford in England, called Asaria, and Asaria Gill. And Asaria is Irish for wizard. So my grandfather was telling the truth all along, but it took my friend to find out my ancestry and to me to look at because the Irish language with Hebrew is a connection to our lost past and the lost civilization that we lost around 10,500 BC, around June sometime. That's what I can get the science down to. Because in June 10,500 BCE, all the water lily and lotus flowers suddenly died out. And that was in June 10,500 BCE. And that fits in exactly, I don't know if you know Robert Bauval's work, and where he's found out the pyramids, even though they're built in 2,500, that the clock there is set up to 10,500 BCE. So I was just working on that date, and I found out that on that day in June, visible from Rennes Chateau here and the mountain here, Cardoon, because both points were necessary to work out the geometry and the triangulation. Once you know the distance between 2 points, then you can work out the distance to any object. And in June that year, the Southern Cross appeared. It also appeared in 2,500 BC. That was when all the big buildings, the pyramids and a lot of other of the megaliths were built. But what is interesting with the Southern Cross appearing, I've also found this cave art from the Chauvet Caves, which are 334 kilometers from here. Now, in the caves there's a cross, and you can see the earth is on fire. Now, close to here, there's a standing stone which marks the spot of where I believe is a comet impact site. In the William Shakespeare plays, it's mentioned there, it's called Parolles. It's in All's Well That Ends Well. Here, the place is called Parolles. But that is the site of what I believe is a comet impact site. And that fits in with the date of 10,500 BCE. And also with, I suppose a lot of you listeners will have heard of Rennes Chateau and the mystery of Rennes Chateau. Well, one of the things there is Blue Apples Day. Now, to understand what the blue apples are, you have to know that one of the priests, Henry Boudet, was a member of the Arts and Sciences in Carcassonne here in France. Now, they had a telescope, and they would have looked, and because also we need to go back to 1581, 440 years ago exactly, and to a group of poet artists in France called the Pleiades. Now, they redid the French language and created a classic language out of it. And so when you look at the Pleiades, especially with these new shots with the Hubble telescope, you can see that they are the seven sisters. And that is where the Southern Cross was crucified, the sun on the Southern Cross, and the comet came or appeared to come from the Pleiades, the blue apples. Now, the other evidence I have is from 500 BC in Egypt, in Alexandria. And also at that time, there was a group of poets there called the Pleiades. And I've also got this image of a crucifixion, and it's Orpheus and Bacchus. And above the crucifixion, the seven stars, the seven sisters, the Pleiades. So this image from Egypt is another clue going back to this crucifixion of the sun, 10,500 BCE, which all connects to the mystery of Rennes-le-Château and why it's blue apples there. The blue apples are the Pleiades, which are called the Taurine meteor shower, which appear to emerge from the Pleiades, which are the thigh of Taurus. And this connects with the myth of Mithras, because Mithras can be seen with the bull sticking his knife into the thigh of Taurus, the bull, in other words, the Pleiades. What Mithras and all these secret societies, especially the Romans, and it was especially endemic among the Roman legionnaires, was Mithraism, and this is this remembrance of this event that happened 10,500 BCE, and it's carried on all the way through to these two priests in Rennes-le-Château and Rennes-le-Ban. First of all, you need to go back to 1886, and that is the year that Henry Boudet, who was the priest here in Rennes-le-Ban, he had his book published called The True Celtic Language in English, but in French it's called Le Vrai Langue Celtique. And it's again, you need to understand that, as my father told me when I was about 15 and 16, the universe is number. Once you understand that, then it gets you into the key of the mysteries of what has gone on all the way through this past. And a lot of the keys are held in masonry, but 99.9% of the Masons don't have a clue. They're not interested in the esoteric side of it. They're more interested in the brandy and cigars. But these two priests, they were both Masons, but they were both Pythagoreans. And as I say, LVLC, L, we'll just use the L to not confuse people. L is a Roman numeral and it's 50. And the Hebrew gematria for 50 is the whole earth, the globe. So what this priest is saying in his book, The True Celtic Language, it's something that goes around the whole globe. And the key to that is held in the Irish myths, where there was a man called Phineas Farsid, who was there at the building of the Tower of Babel. And what the one language which Henry Boudet supposes was the English language was lost at the Tower of Babel, and it was turned into 72 different languages. Now, Phineas Farsid knitted together the Irish language out of the 72 languages that were created. And of course, 72 is a very special number connected with the procession of the equinoxes and so much else. And then in 1887, the church at Rennes-le-Château, Berenger Saunier started the work there a year later. And from 1887 to 1897, there's 11,605 francs spent. That would be around 4.5 million euros nowadays. So the question is, where did he get his money from? And the whole key lies with Henry Boudet. And again, it's this bridge that goes back, and we need to look at the church again and enter the church and see what the church reveals at Rennes-le-Château, because that's where a lot of the clues and ciphers are held in there. So as you go and approach the church, on your right hand side there's a crucifixion. On the left hand side there's a Virgin Mother from Lourdes. As you enter the church, above the door there's Mary Magdalene, because the church is dedicated to Mary Magdalene, and she's holding a cross pointing in a direction. Now, as we see when we get in the church, because the clues are there, when you take a line from that cross to where the blank meets souls, that's where it goes across a place called Aram. And Aram is very important in the Bible, connected with Jacob. And we'll deal with that later. So as you enter the church, on your left-hand side, the first thing that catches your eye is the devil is there. You think, why is the devil in a church? Well, you need to know this is Cathar country. And the Cathars had a belief that this earth was created by the devil. But also as well, the name has been given to him Asmodeus, the guardian of the treasure. And also as well, this connects again with Asaria, because Asaria is the angel who kills Asmodeus. But also, the demon can also, as we see, get in further in, because you have to understand it's multi-layered. You cannot go and put your point on a point in the middle of a circle. You have to understand the whole circle, and it's like an onion. It's multi-layered. So the demon is also Zagros. And Zagros is Dionysus, who was very important in the mysteries of Eleusis, which was held in Greece. And these were the mysteries where everybody was initiated, men and women alike. And also, just above there, you've got the water font. So you've got the demon, earth, you've got the water font, water, and then you've got two salamanders, which are fire. And above them, you've got four angels, which are air. So you've got air, fire, water, and air. You've got all four elements. So this is about alchemy. You have to have a little bit of understanding about alchemy, and a great source for that is Carl Jung. He has delved deeper into alchemy than anyone else, and he's been a great help in this. So
Definitely.
There, once you go past there, on your left-hand side, you've got a big rhombi stone, like a diamond shape. Mm-hmm. It's basically two equilateral triangles put together, which creates the rhombi, which, very not coincidentally, is also the symbol for light. And on the rhombi stone, above it, you've got Jesus. Now, Jesus is the Son, as we will see. Because, and again, as I say, as Henry Boudet said, the Irish language is essential to understand this. And you take the J off, because J doesn't exist in the Irish language. And you have E-S-U-S, Esus. Now, he was a Celtic god of can trace back the Masons to 1000 BCE. And he was a Celtic god who pruned the tree. But also as well, you need to understand that Jesus is a composite god, and he's connected with Isa, I-E-S-A, an Irish god, and also Horus. This is where you get the US again at the end, connecting with Isis and Isa, and you see all three again come together to create Jesus. It's a composite god, like the church is this composite multi-layered. So, and again, we'll just go back a little, because we dealt with why it's Blue Apples Day, but we need to deal why it's chosen January the 17th for this Blue Apples Day. Now, as I said, the universe is number. And so if you add all the numbers up from 1 to 17, you get 153. Now, 153 is very important in sacred geometry because all the cathedrals, all the megalithic stones are built according to the sacred geometry of 153. And as these were priests, you need to understand that 153 is only found once in the Bible, and that's in John's Gospel, where Jesus goes out fishing with his disciples, the 12, the Zodiac, and he catches in his net 153 fishes. And now the fishes are caught by Nathaniel, who is the son of Ptolemy. So it's Bartholomew. So just above the water, like I say, the 153 is the fishes in the net that Jesus catches. But also you need to know in the life of Pythagoras, the last thing Pythagoras does, this is around 500 BCE, he goes out fishing with his disciples and catches the fishes in the net. So it's showing that Pythagoras wrote the Bible. Once you understand that, and that Irish is a key to the access that, then you can see further as we go further into the church. And straight in front of you, once you pass the rhombus with Jesus, you've got Jesus and John the Baptist. And once you know the story that is Pythagoras, you understand that Jesus is another layer that Pythagoras has created. And the history tells us that Pythagoras was created in Gaul, here in France, by Abaris the Gaul. A very important name to remember. Now he is John the Baptist. He's who baptized Pythagoras. And also it connects with Nicholas Poussin as well. But we'll go back a little bit to just where the salamanders are. It's got the BS, which is the blank and souls. And as I said about the fishes in the net, it's Bartholomew. It's Bartholomew and Solang, these two mountains here, which I'll get back to a little later with the distances and measurements and everything. And also the BS is Boudet and Saunier. And the fourth one is Bacon, Shakespeare. So once we have those four, we've got the four angels working with us. We've got the rhombus. We've got Isis, Iesa, Horus, Abaris the Gaul, and Bacon is Shakespeare as we move around. Now we need to know on January the 17th, the light comes in directly there as we move along to Germain. So we need to put in G. As I say, there were Masons and there were Pythagoreans, and G is telling us it's geometry, among other things. And so as you move, the light moves along, it moves from G to A. Now G-A is Irish, it's pronounced gay, which I think is really very suitable, and it means the shaft of the spear of light. So they're telling you to follow the light. So it moves from the G to the A. It's a shaft of spear of light. That's who is 5. Now, as I was saying, Dionysus was born from the thigh of Zeus. So you need to complete Germain, Antoine, and Rock, G-A-R. Then the light moves along and it finishes on Luke. Luke, which is Irish, again goes to Lu, and again it's connected with the Roman, which is Luc, Lux, light, and that's where the light finishes. And then if you carry the geometry on from L, there's another Antoine. You've got Antoine of Padua, which is very significant as we'll move along. And then to Mary Magdalene, who is carrying a huge cross. And there's nowhere in the Bible where she's carrying a cross. But we'll get back to that. So there it spells, you've got the G-A-R-L-A-M, Garlam. Now that is Irish for myth. So it's telling the church is spreading light and it's telling you the truth, it's all myth. But then we need to return to the G-A, the shaft of the spear of light, because it's important why it's the Church of Mary Magdalene. And so we'll deal with that. When you move along from the G to the M, back to the A, G, M, A, it's Masonic. And we have the evidence here in stone, which nobody can disrepute. It's irrefutable. It means Grand Master Architect. And you've got another triangle there illuminated by the light. So it's telling you Grand Master Architect, and we'll deal with that as we move further along and past the church. And so, as I said, the light finishes on Luke, and there in front of you is a cave, and there's a woman in it with her fingers crossed. Now, she's been wrongly attributed to Mary Magdalene. She's there twice in the church. Why all these other times? It's not. As I say, it's the Grand Master Architect, and what you're taught in that is that you meet Sophia. And so it is Sophia in the cave. And as you follow the geometry, where you've got the cave in the church and opposite you've got the stone, when you work that around and work it on the mountain, Basel and Cardu, you've got the cave there and you've got the stone, just so you find it. And we need to bring in Jules Verne here, because he tells you in Journey to the Centre of the Earth, you need to be there at the autumn equinox. But also, it's also the spring equinox as well, where the sun sets behind the stone directly, which is the Rhombus stone, which is there engraved on the mountain. So what's in the church is also outside in the landscape. All you have to do is follow the geometry and follow it masonically. But my father was a Mason, so that's why I followed this way. I'm the eldest son, I'm a Lewis. So my father, he called it inculcation. And this is what I learned on the way. And so, as I say, we've got to Grand Master Architect of Mary Magdalene. Now, Mary Magdalene, it's important to understand, because Grand Master Architect deals with Hiram Abiy. Hiram Abiy was the architect of the Temple of Solomon. But as we see with Mary Magdalene, it's important to understand why Pythagoras is leaving Mary Magdalene, because as we've seen, Pythagoras wrote the Bible, so why has he left MM? Well, he was initiated in India. On his way to India, he went over the Sarasvati River. That's where he got the name Sarah from, Sarah and Abraham. Abraham means father of time, father and time song. And so Sarah is there, an actual river that went underground, funnily enough, about 12,000 years ago. And it's connected with an Indian goddess. And when Pythagoras went to India, he learnt about Krishna. And Krishna, Christos, Christ. And it's Krishna, near enough all the images were destroyed by the Christians in India. Krishna was crucified and his arms and feet were pierced. Just exactly as Pythagoras related the story and brought it to the West, and he had to change it to create it for Western eyes, Western ears, because they wouldn't have accepted Krishna and all the pantheon of Hindu gods, because it was all about one God. And so, as I was saying, we've gone to Mary Magdalene, and why Hiram Abiy? Well, if we go and look at India, and it's about the sacred geometry of India, it was connected by Mamuni Mayan, M-A-Y-A-N. How did the Mayan name come about? Maya actually means illusion from India. So they're actually saying it's all Maya. It's an illusion. The actuality goes back to India. And Mamuni Mayan. And the important thing that connects him, why it is Hiram Abiy, because his book on sacred geometry is called Ain Di Iram. A-I-N-D-I-R-A-M. So you've got Hiram Abiy there. And Abiy means father. So it's father of Mamuni Mayen, Farum of Abi is Mamuni Mayen from India. So once we've understood that, and that Mary Magdalene has been used that, and she's got this huge cross, why have they given her a huge cross? Well, that is why the light finishes on Luke, because you need to look at the Gospels. Because Mary Magdalene is only a bit part actress. If you look at them as plays, she's only there at the death scene as part of a trinity of women. So it's important, and especially that's why they've left it there in the church, where it's Mary and Martha washing Jesus' feet with the hair, because Pythagoras makes sure you know he says Martha, Martha, M, and then Mary washes the feet. M, it's using repetition. It's what Francis Bacon uses in the Shakespeare plays, as we'll get around to. And this repetition, it goes back. There's a guy called Philo of Alexandria, and he says what you need to do to get deep to the mysteries is look at the mistakes and repetitions. And so that is what is. Mary Magdalene has been given this huge cross because all these men, all these women, all of these Christians, both whatever denomination they want to be, have put this cross on this woman when she's not has no part of it, because she's only has a bit part, which is the death scene, and she's connected. And why that's why it's Magdala, because it's Tower, and we need to get to the real name of Rennes le Chateau. It's not called the Tour Magdala. The original name is called Tour le Horloge, which means clock tower. And as I was saying about Bartholomew and Solang, it's no wonder that it's called Sol Ankh, because it's that connection with Egypt. But we'll need to carry on. We'll finish with the church first. And at the end, you've got Joseph and Mary holding the twins. And this is about the divine twins, about 6-6. Because I said, Pythagoras wrote the Bible, the key's Irish. Now, Moses is supposed to be the one who wrote the Bible. Now, it was just after a Monty Python show, and I said to my dad, we always have these deep discussions, and I said to him, you know, when Moses wrote the Bible, and he stopped me and he says, I think you will find that Pythagoras wrote the Bible. I looked at him and I says, what? Both the Old and New Testament? He says, yes. And I had to think about it, and I thought real long and hard and deep, and I said, somehow I can see that, but I've got to prove it. And he planted the seed there and then. And as I say, Moses is Irish. You need to use, why Francis Bacon used the hyphen in Shakespeare is because it's necessary to use the hyphen to get to the truth. So Moses, you put the hyphen there and it's Mo, S-E-S. But it's a cipher which a Mo means my, and it's my 6-6. And also a little bit further on, who was the pharaoh in Egypt? Ramesses. Ram, S, and Ram means or. So Ramesses is the or to 6-6. Look at Ezekiel. Ezekiel again is an Irish cipher. E-S-E, again it's that 6-6. And CL means disguise. So Ezekiel means 6-6 disguise. Which brings us to the Cathars. And the name is a corruption of the Irish name C-A-T-H-A-I-R, which means city, and it's pronounced Ker. And you see how the name has been changed from something which means something sacred and holy, because the city is something which we build within ourselves. And it's been turned into a name, Ker, which means something dead, dog, or lowly. And that's what's been changed in time from something which is sacred. But the other name which is connected with it is spelled C-A-T-H-A-O-I-R, which is Irish for the throne. And in Ezekiel 10, it talks about the throne of God. Now, all the Cathar castles are just that. The thrones, they're there to look at the throne of God, which is the heavens. Now, what I found close to, because the priest Saunier found this parchment scroll there, which mentions initiation. And in Boudet's book, his brother Edmund Boudet, who was a member of the Order of Sion, as all of the priests were, and they're all Martinists, as they're all Pythagoreans. And he drew this map. Now, by following the map and extending it over and using the geometry of the two churches, and I didn't mention in the church of Rennes-le-Ban is a Visigoth pillar, and that is connected with the Visigoth pillar at Rennes-le-Château. As Rennes-le-Ban is the Yoni, the pillar is Boaz. And Boaz, again, is an Irish cipher which is connected with Bo is the cow, it's the moon. And so that is the Yoni. And the other one is the Lingam at Rennes-le-Château, and that is connected with the male aspect. But it all connects back to that time, 1886, 1887, when the church was finished. But as I said, it's connected with Bacon and Shakespeare. And the reason why there's two Antoines, we need to connect the A together, because I was saying it's about Grand Master Architect is there. We put the A together, which is ancient and accepted. And on one of the stations of the cross, there's a little Scottish boy in a kilt. And so you connect that up, that is the fourth of the geometry, and it's ancient accepted Scottish rite. And when you go down to the castle, the chateau at Cuisa, who it was finished in the time of the marriage of Duc Andejoyus, which was 440 years exactly now. It was happening in 1581 September. And Duc Andejoyus, who is Han Hathaway. Anne hath a way. He had a way of initiating Francis into this whole area. And like I said, the Shakespeare plays will be revealed. But first of all, you need to look at the castle, at the chateau. And that inside, when you walk inside, on the walls, there's the Ionic, Doric and Corinthian columns with the rhombus again. And that is the 12th degree in the ancient accepted Scottish rite. You talk about the columns, which comes from the Irish again, column, which means the dove. And of course, a column is just like a dove rising.
Hey, Trebha, let me bother you there 1 second. You mentioned the columns, the three kinds of columns: Ionic, Doric, and Corinthian. It's been a while since I went to art school and we talked about those type of columns. It's very significant because you don't ever usually find all three of those in one structure. Is that not correct?
That's right. Yes, exactly. That's why it's been left in stone. Nobody can argue about it. And that's why it was 440 years ago. They've worked the magic then. Because what happened at first, we need to go back to the Louvre, which is an anagram. The Pleiades left behind. It's English for "Are you love?" So they're leaving that there because what happened there, and it was Catherine de Medici, whose mother's family was from Castle Nordry near Carcassonne here. And she brought the ballet there, and the first time ballet was performed was exactly 440 years ago. Now is the anniversary of that first performance. And as I say, the whole, once you walk into the chateau, you can see straight away. To me, when I first walked in, I went, "Oh no, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?" Because the balconies are there. Yeah. And of course, quite near to Keon, which we'll get back to, is Romeru. And from Romeru to Spain, which you need to go, we'll get to Don Quixote in a minute because it's connected. But Romeru, on the way there, is Montoriol. And Montoriol is connected with Taurus. And again, the Taurid meter is shower. Bacon is pointing to that. And Montoriol is Montague. So we've got Romeru and Montague all connected there. And then, as I was saying, the chateau in 1581 was Catherine Medici and everything, and was bringing it in. It's all this love. And it's this, there was this beginning, this start that happened in 1967. But what's happening now is that bouncing ball effect. It's that repercussion that's happening again now. And that is going to win everything. Because, as I was saying, the layers of Jesus are connected with Pythagoras. And as I said, to show that Pythagoras wrote the Bible, it's necessary to know the other parchment that was found at the church, the parchment scroll, was connected to the Codex Bezae. Now, of course, this brings us to Bacon again, because the Codex Bezae is named after Theodore Beza, who took it from Geneva, but its source is in Calabria, and Crotona, Pythagoras' school, is in Crotona. And Theodore Beza took it to London to Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon had his book published and took it to Cambridge University, where it is now. And it's the New Testament in Roman, in Latin, and in Greek. And that is what the New Testament is based on. And that is the work of Pythagoras that he left with the Brotherhood in Crotona. Because even the Catholic Church admits the Codex Bezae originated in Calabria. So the trail is irrefutable. It cannot be. There's what I've made sure. I studied the law for 2 years. I've made sure that everything is cast proof, that everything got fixed together. Because my father taught me. He says, "Look, it's a jigsaw puzzle. You just need to find the pieces." And so we got to 1581, and the marriage of Ducan de Joyeuse and Hathaway, and we've got to Romeo and Romeo, and of course, we need to know why it's Juliet, and it's a Jew lie. The Jew lie is that they're the chosen people, because in the Bible, Pythagoras makes it quite clear the chosen people are the Hebrews. The Hebrews are everybody. It's all of us. We're all the chosen people. That's why we're all here.
Yeah.
And that's another one. Just up the village from here, there's the date that connects with 17 again, and it's Jubilee. Jubilee. It's a lie. And what we need to go back to again is when I was 10, my father taught me about the House of Memory. And the first journey was down, and it's funny, it was the AA map, the Automobile Association. There was making sure that I got the AA into my head on the way. And one of the first journeys, we took off the A1 at Stilton, which I remember saying to me, "Oh, that's the cheese you like," because me and my brother hated Stilton. I'm still not keen on blue cheese myself anyway. And we passed this place, Aspidella Zooch, and I saw the sign. I says, "Look, Dad, La Siesta. What's La Siesta?" And of course it's Leicester, but in my head I was seeing La Siesta. He just smiled at me. He had this smile with his, where he had, you know, how fathers have with the crow's feet coming from the eyes. And he always used to give me that knowing smile. And I just planted it in the garden because I'd been taught the House of Memory, but I thought what I need is a garden. Those things that I don't know about, I need to plant it in a garden so I can go back to. And this connects, as I say, Bacon, Shakespeare, because in the first folio of Shakespeare, hidden there, it's Fra Bocconi. And in Esther, what we find is Béziers, Carcassonne, Narbonne, BCN. AOI, which makes the Bocconi from BCN. AOI means guest lodger, because that's all what we all are. We're all guest lodgers in this body. We've all had previous lives. We're all going on to next lives. We are just guest lodgers in this body. Mm-hmm. But it's no coincidence, and Francis Bacon must have thought this is something going on. And again, we was talking about Mamoni Mayen and Hiram Abi, and connected with the sacred geometry, because what it happens there, it's Queen Vashti. And what you need to do is the Aindir Ram is about Vashtu Shastra. Vashtu Shastra is the sacred geometry. And what it is, it's a Benjamite and Mordecai. And Mordecai, again, is an Irish word which means magician, which we'll get back to because it's all connected.
Well, I also want to pause you again there. You mentioned some places I wanted to talk to you about. I don't know if you're familiar with Kathleen McGowan's work, but she does a lot of work at Rennes-le-Chateau as well. And there's also some work that needs to be talked about at Carcassonne. Carcassonne, if I'm not mistaken, first of all, I'm aware of it because I have it as a board game, which is a really, really good board game. It's an area control type board game where you lay down tiles and you try to control areas and score points. But that's aside. The actual city of Carcassonne is a walled city, and if I'm not mistaken, that's where all the Cathars were murdered.
It's Béziers, Narbonne, and Carcassonne. It's that they were the three places that Simon de Montfort went to and massacred the lot, because his general went to him. He says, "How do I tell who are Catholics and who not?" He says, "How can I tell who the heretics?" He says, "Kill them all. God will know his own."
Yeah, and it's Carcassonne's where we get the phrase "kill them all, let God sort them out," right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Béziers, and when you put the triangle there, because Esther is a clue, we've got the ES again. Turn it around, which is SE. Fair is Thea, which means 6 Western. When we draw that triangle, and you can do it on Google Earth, draw it from Béziers, Carcassonne, Narbonne. Look where the point is pointing to, and draw a line from the meridian on the mountain Cardew, and you'll find Western 6 is where the mountain goes, and that goes to a place called Serres, Serres, another Irish cipher, which means age of 6, time of 6. Trace. And when you take a line from the mountain Cardew and take it to go Beckley Tepe, anybody can take a line. It doesn't mean anything. But what is really interesting with this line, it goes past through a town in Greece called Serres. That is beyond coincidence. Why the two Serres? And also as well, when you put the triangle in, there's a place in Egypt called New Serres. There's 3 of them. There's 3 Serres. Just as there's a Rennes-le-Ban here, Rennes-le-Chateau, and there's a Rennes in the north. They knew about binary, but they like working the 3. This is one of the reasons that all of the Gothic cathedrals, and you'll see a lot of the places in your architecture in America, you've got 3 doors. You've got 2 doors or 2 windows in each side with the main door. That's working the 3. Dr. John Dee tells us in the Iris Monoglyphica, Hieroglyphica. I shouldn't say this, but take the ternary and use it to turn into the quaternity. And that's what the priests have, as I've shown, that's what they've done in the church there. They've created 4s all the way along there. But what the evidence is, and it's solid, it's been left there, is this pyramid I've found. Not just the pyramid, I've found 4, well over 4. There's 4 sites in about a line that go from the south to the north to the mountain. The first one just happens to be a 2 by 2 by 2 cube, and it's the first one. And the first degree in masonry is learning about the 2 by 2 by 2 cube, and that measures exactly 2 by 2 by 2. But what comes into it used to be a stream. It's dried up now. I don't know what age, what time. What I need is a geologist, because as I say, I know where the comet impact site is. That's been left in the Shakespeare plays, All Wells That Ends Well, because the clue is the Count of Roussillon, and the main character is Pyrrolls, and the place where the comet impact is Payrolls. And that's, again, another Francis Bacon clue, because there's no way Shakespeare, this mass from Stratford could have created it. It has to be Francis Bacon. And that's why it's been left in the church, Bacon, Shakespeare. But also, getting back to Bartholomew, Solank, when you measure this pyramid that I found, the measurements are in metric. And it's 60 meters by 22.5, 22.5, and then it goes in 12 meters, 6 meters, 3 meters. Now, anybody can work with the numbers because they're all there, the whole solar system there. But when you multiply all of those numbers together, what it gives you is 147,622,500 kilometers. And an astrophysicist measured it from me. When you measure the sun from Rennes-le-Château at that distance, it twice a year it sets exactly between Bartholomew and Solheim. That's why Pythagoras catching the fishes in the net is the sacred geometry of the sun, because both the Pythagoreans, the Druids, the Cathars believed all the pure souls return to the sun before returning back to earth. And that is, and people looking for portals, that is the portal, but only twice a year. 147, 622, 500, and it's there in measurements. It cannot be out. It's irrefutable.
So let me ask you this: did Pythagoras develop his theories on triangles based on that catch, that 153 fish?
The 153 fishes in the net are concerned with the rhombi. What I've found in my research is that the Pythagorean triangle goes back a lot before the time of Pythagoras in 500 BCE. But it's an incarnation of souls. That Pythagorean triangle goes back all that period in time. It's connected with Stonehenge. If you take a line from Stonehenge to Lundy Island to the Preseli Mountains where they were mined, there's a Pythagorean triangle, 3, 4, 5. If you take that same point north to Arbor Law in Derbyshire, take it to Anglesey, you complete. It's a Pythagorean two Pythagorean triangles together. All those sites are there specifically for that. But one of the secret things of the Pythagorean triangle is connected with Egypt. Is connected with Isis and Osiris and Horus, because the straight line is Isis, the line laying down is Osiris, and the square on the hypotenuse is the divine child, Horus. And that's one of the secrets of the Pythagorean triangle.
That's absolutely fascinating.
One thing I had to do a bit of research on, because I told you about Mabus. It's one that I put in my house of memory. All I did was put the name, and that it was ambassador to Saudi Arabia. So I had to do some research today. And he was called Raymond Edwin Mabus Jr. He was ambassador to Saudi Arabia from July 1994 till April the 25th, 1996. That's exactly 2 years. If you look at September the 11th, 2001, there's 10 years there between it. They're working the numbers. And what you've got to understand with 9/11, you've got the working magic. You've got to turn it round to understand what it is. And 119 is Psalms. P.S. Put the Shakespeare hyphen in the P.S. and Pythagoras fits in there. Arms means gift. The Psalms is Pythagoras' gift. And Psalms 119 is all about the Hebrew alphabet. And that's what they did on 911, because to all Pythagoreans, the number 11 is about evil. It's only about black magic. And there's a friend of mine, Simon Miles. He's worked out the whole timing, the geometry, the time the first plane hit, the rising of the sun across the Hudson River, the working the sun, the water, the numbers all together. The working black magic. And it's Bush, Blair, Netanyahu. And my friend also, he's got the evidence to prove the Archbishop of Canterbury was there at the church. That was one of the main centres of communication that was going on there. Everybody's looking at the other building that collapsed. Nobody looks at the Church of England church, where the Archbishop of Canterbury just happened to be there the same day.
Yeah, that can't be a coincidence.
It's beyond coincidence. And like I said, why Mabus? I told you, I just knew Mabus was connected with it all. And again, we've got to go back to Nostradamus, because his house is at Alet. close to Alet is the Valley Alet. So you go E-L-E-T, E-A-L-E-T-H, A-L-E-F. It's Aleph. Aleph there is the first place. That's why
Aleph is a Hebrew sigil, isn't it?
Exactly. And let's go back to, as I was saying, I've got the evidence from the cave at Chauvet. When you measure the distance from Rennes-le-Château to the cave at Chauvet, it's exactly 334 kilometers as they walked it. And the Hebrew gematria for 334 is darkness, astrologers, magicians. Magicians, Mordecai. Takes us back to the book of Esther. Pythagoras is telling us in the Lycée Esther that it was magicians somehow who brought the comet down. But what also we need to put in is Plato's account, where he tells us what happened to Atlantis because they grew too arrogant. They become too arrogant. And as I said, the Irish language is the key. And let's just take Cuba, because that's a favourite one, just off the Florida coast of you. When you put the Shakespeare hyphen there, you've got Cuba. Ba means immersion flood. Ku means the hound. So Cuba is the reminder there in the Irish language of the immersion flood was as fast as a hound.
So it's referring to the Chicxulub blast that hit the tip of Mexico?
No, that was the dinosaurs. The one I'm talking about is the one that, first of all, part of it, what you need to do is, I was talking to this friend of mine who's the 32nd degree Mason, and I was talking about the comet impact and telling him all the same as I've told you. He says, if you want an eyewitness account, read the book of Revelations. So what I did after that, I read the book of Revelations. You can see it. One part fell on the land, one part fell on the sea. Then there were 6 heads. The serpent had 6 heads. The tail was the 6 parts that came off. There's a guy called, what's his name now? I forgot his name. He proposes that part of the comet hit North America, and that destroyed the ice caps, and that wiped off any civilization or any sites or parts of what was left of the previous civilizations there. But what we can get back to is, again, Francis Bacon and his friend Walter Raleigh. In 1576, Walter Raleigh took Thomas Heriot with him to Roanoke Island. You've all heard of Roanoke Island. Now, Thomas Heriot was a mathematician and linguist. He spent just nearly 2 years with the Algonquin Indians. They were there on the East Coast there. Now, he learned from them the maths and the language. Now, he came back to Francis Bacon, and from Thomas Heriot, Francis Bacon then produced his biliteral cipher. The reason we're talking now is because of binary. Is because of the binary cipher that Francis Bacon learned from the Algonquin Indians. So how we're talking now, we owe to the Algonquin Indians, the Algonquin natives. They're the ones who kept that memory of Atlantis. Because if we look at the language again, Scotland, its name is Alba. Alba. Ba means, again, it means immersion flood. Al means litter brood. So it means the immersion flood of the litter brood. It was, and the same, that's why we find the oldest stone in County Sligo, on the west side of Ireland. We find it there before Newgrange. And one thing, I spent quite a number of years in Ireland. My family are all there at the moment, most of them anyway. And when I was there, I was determined to find Grange. I knew if there was a new Grange, there had to be an old Grange. There had to be a Grange. And again, this one day, my manager, Jackie Solon, because this is what got me.
It makes sense.
I said, Jackie, Solon, I says, where you, and so on's a Greek name. How come you got a Greek name? Where you from? County Sligo. I says, well, you're a key, Jackie. That's showing me your name's there before. And what we need to do in County Cork, there's Mulla Greek Mountains. Mulla Greek. The Greeks have got the name. They claim that all the rest were barbarians, like the Romans. They're both liars. My history teacher at school, Mary Brennan, I used to ask her loads of questions, and one day she said to me, Trevor, look, you've got to understand, it's the victors who write the history.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so that's what's been left in the church there is a testament of truth. It's Masonic, it's Pythagorean, but they knew exactly about the Pleiades, Pierre Ronside, and the wedding. That they were totally aware that was the 12th degree in masonry. Any mason who walks in there, it's totally obvious. In fact, it was funny. One day, this friend of mine, we walked from Rennes-le-Ban to Rennes-le-Château, and we took the measurements on GPS. And when we got back to Rennes-le-Ban, we found out there were 12 degrees out. And I says, right, let's go to I've never been to the Chateau at Cuisa before. I said, let's go down there. I walked in there, and I'd read Albert Pike. I've got both his books, Morals and Dogma and his Opus Magnum, both of them are great reference books. It's funny losing Albert Pike, I find, because everybody else has demonized him. I found him a good light source to me, really.
He's definitely very interesting. I've put up stuff about him where I work and articles and stuff like that. Definitely a trip. They do try to make him seem creepy, but I mean, I don't know the truth of it all, but it's interesting regardless. One thing I want to ask you, maybe we could talk about Albert Pike a little bit more, is when it comes to wizards, what kind of powers do they have? What is it? Weather? Is it like, I know I've heard the story of Merlin and the dragons and the earth and thing. I have books that are magic tomes of Merlin and weird stuff.
I'll have to tell you a story. A true, okay. Again, it's a true story. As I said, I mentioned this friend of mine, Simon Miles. We've both been working independently on this, but together, if you know what I mean. And this one day, I just happened to go down to him, and I just said, look, I've been thinking this. Look, the source of everything, the first place Pythagoras went to was Thales. And Thales' whole philosophy, the first principle is water. I said, look, it's got to be water. And then he explained to me this experience that he'd had with water. We walked outside the house, and it was a clear blue sky. There wasn't a cloud there. And as we walked out of the house, in front of us, it was like this spray of water covered us. It was like, wow, we'd found this key. And we walked up further up the road, and all of a sudden there was this noise. Now, I've heard about people hearing noises around the planet. This noise was unbearable. We both had to bend down. We both were close to the earth. This noise was that overpowering. We said to him, what the hell was that? I said, look, it has to be the sun. Well, as well, light and water. Where's the water? But as we just saw, water is there even though we don't see it. We walked on a little bit further, and out of the mountain came this white plane. No UFO. It looked like an aeroplane. It went out of the mountain. Just about where I would say where the spot where the comet impact is, and it went back to the mountain. I said to Simon, that's me in the mountain, I've got to stay here. And he talked earlier about that he was about to move to Diggle in Lancashire. This is how I know about the stone circles, because he's done some work there. And this other plane appeared right in front of our eyes, and it went straight in this western direction, which I just said to him. I said, look, that's you, and that's you on the way to Diggle. Because the reason I said this, because I read Carl Jung's book on flying saucers, and Jung says any of these things, when you see the flying saucers, they're a projection of yourself. They're all part of ourselves that we just project outward. And people have had these experiences, out-of-body experiences and all the rest of it. In fact, I have to. It's a paranormal program. As I said, my grandfather said we're from a long line of 7 sons of 7 sons. My auntie, she was the 7th child of my grandfather and grandmother, and she was totally psychic. She was studied by a head psychologist at Hull University, and she says he can't believe how accurate she was. She could dream from one week what was happening the next week, all around the planet. She got all the newspapers and watched the news, and it was over 90% her ability to. And she said, because this is why I know 9/11 is some deep shit behind it, because I was in a place called Birds Lane in Cork Island, and the first night I had this dream, and I was on Brooklyn Bridge. And I know now, I didn't know at the time when I woke up, but I know now it's Brooklyn Bridge, and I saw the 2 planes hit. This was 2 days. 2 days. Then the night before, I had the same dream again. It was so overpowering. I was there on Brooklyn Bridge. I saw the first plane hit. I saw the second plane hit. I went to. It was that powerful. I didn't go to work that day. I cooked me breakfast and I turned on the news. And just after I turned on the news, I sat there eating, and it came on. The second tower hit, and I was sat there. Where's the first? Because I'd seen it. The 2 dreams I've had, the first tower and the second tower, I'd seen them both hit. And of course, it was all fixed. It was all planned. It was what it is. It's shock horror tactic. You shock people enough into believing something, and this is why the bad painted Saddam. Blair's another one that's involved in this. He said Saddam was getting nuclear uranium from Africa. Total lie, total fabrication. The whole war in Iraq was a fabrication. Al-Qaeda, Ben Laden was funded by the CIA. All his money came from the Saudis, and from the Saudis, exactly from America and from Britain and from Israel. Because Israel's as dependent as America and Britain, the rest are, on Saudi oil.
What about go ahead, but at some point I want to talk about crop circles, because I know you sent me some info about those too, but I mean, when you're ready.
Exactly. Well, I'd nearly forgotten them in my excitement about, well, these are really important, because the first one, again, I don't believe in coincidence. The first one I noticed on Facebook, somebody posted, it was from West Meon. And as soon as I saw the name, I thought, Meon, that's Irish. I thought, I've got to pay attention to this. So I did some research, and I found straight away this crop circle, which is the Star of Creation, which in the 11th, 10th century, the Jews took over as the Star of David. But it's the Indian Star of Creation. It's the star of the beginning of creation. And it's no wonder the River Meon, right next to it, is a shepherd's staff. And Meon is Irish. So in 2 ways, it's the water. It's connected, as I was saying, it's connected with the water. And I'm glad we got that out with my experience with me and Simon, because that's important. Us getting to that understanding about the water. It's, to me, I'd seen this guy, I have to mention this guy, Freddie Silver. He's the first one who got me interested in the healing powers of crop circles. He says they've taken corn from there and corn from outside the circle. They've grown them next to each other, and the corn from inside the circle is bigger and higher than the one surrounding it. And also, people have taken these and reported really amazing health recoveries. I mean, scientifically, more investigation needs to be done. But what to me is, that's why I put on your post, if people get that one from West Meon, because Meon means attitude, mindset, psyche, noble mind. So what I'd suggest people did is download that one from West Meon, put a jug of water, not plastic, in glass or pot. Put a jug of water on top of that, leave it overnight, say thank you, I love you to it. Because I don't know if you know about Dr. Emoto and his work, where he did the experiments with water, and he showed by saying I love you and thank you, that the water responded. So it proves that water not only has memory, but in some way, its fourth state is connected with consciousness. And this is what, to me, this first one that I spotted at West Meon, is this: the water is talking to us. First of all, I noticed the Irish, and then, of course, I had to look. I thought, okay, if it's Irish, because, like I said, I found out about the Chauvet Cave and the connection with Hebrew and Irish, that it goes back before 10,500 BCE. Once I get the geologist in the comic impact site, I'm certain he or she'll confirm that date, because I've got the signs of June that year, and I've got the astroarchaeology of that day. And the other interesting, what I have to mention, is the blue star that appears at the same time as the Southern Cross, is Canopus. And in the Rig Veda, an Indian scholars found out that was sighted in India 26,000 BCE. So this movement of the Southern Cross and Canopus from the Southern Hemisphere to the Northern Hemisphere, we know it happened something happened in 26,000 years ago, 10,500 BCE. We can prove that the Southern Cross was visible from Rennes-le-Château and the mountain Cardoux. And also 2,500 BCE, it was visible as well then. That's when the pyramids were built. Even though the setup to the other timing, that's why they were built 2,500 BCE, but that's why they're set up to 10,500 BCE. Nobody's looked for the Southern Cross. And like I say, it's my friend Simon Miles, he found the Southern Cross first. In fact, he was born in Australia. That I said to him, that's why he had to be born there, because he brought the Southern Cross from Australia to here.
I got to ask you about the pyramids again. You just said you brought them up the second time. I've done some work in it. You and I, we've been friends on Facebook for years, and we were in some archaeology groups where we talked about this specific thing and the stuff that Bob Newton's looking at in Peru as well. Now, as far as I understand, the Egyptians of the 2,500 BCE did not have the proper math. They did not have the proper tools or the proper. They didn't have the wheel. Number one, chariot didn't come out to like 1400 BCE, and they didn't have the compass. All of these tools they would need, especially the wheel, so they could make fulcrums and like cranes and whatnot to carry those.
That's why this pyramid I've found here is very important. Because once I can get the archaeology done, the geology done on the comet impact site, then this pyramid that I've found, like I say, all the measurements add up to this distance, which an astrophysicist has confirmed twice a year from Rennes-le-Château. The sun sets there. And in that pyramid, built into it in stone, is a 1 by 1 by 1 meter, a 1 meter square pyramid. The Benben stone that fits on that they found at the bottom of the pyramid is exactly that 1 meter square. And so the whole knowledge of the well, for a start, we need to look at Cardoux, the mountain, because the meridian there, once you take a meridian through, because I've posted it there, it's a portal. You go through it and you climb upwards, and whoever it was, whether it was Celts or even, I believe before that, Neolithic, who actually they've carved in stone this straight line right up the mountain. Now, when you put the measurements, GPS, take it all the way to the north, take it all the way to the south, and then you put in a meridian exactly at the Great Pyramid. The distances between each meridian, because you have to understand, they understood binary. This is why the Algonquins are the connection to this, and this is why I mentioned binary. They understood binary. This is why there was always two meridians. The mountain Cardoux. This is why the Romans used the measurement Cardo, which is the measurement north to south. Cardo is from Cardoux. And the measurement exactly is equal there. And as I say, I had to find Grange in Ireland. I found the stone circle there. In fact, it's a whole They call it Neolithic. It could be older to me, but it's a whole big huge stone circle, a fallen stone circle, other standing stones. This mound in the middle of a lake. Again, how they did it, I couldn't explain. Because to get the earth, the stones over there, where it came from, what distances, to me, this is as big a feat as the pyramid. It's about half the size of the pyramid, but it's this huge mound in the middle of the lake. Now, this stone circle is important because I used to go in there. My son taught me this Qigong exercise. It's really handy because it connects you with the earth and with the heavens. And I used to do this north and south, east and west in there. And I just happened to come back here to France, and I put in the meridian here, in exactly here in the mountain Cardew, and I decided, okay, I'll put another line, a line of latitude from the Stone Circle Grange across and see where it leads me. Well, funnily enough, it goes straight through Dudley Castle. And Dudley, the Earl of Dudley, just happened to be the father of Francis Bacon. And then you follow the line further on there, and it goes through Berlin. Now, Berlin is an Irish name, beer, line. Beer means past, line is line lineage, so it means past line lineage. And the reason Berlin is there is because of this stone circle in Ireland. It's exactly on the same latitude. It's irrefutable. And the linguistics are there. Past line, it takes you back to Grange. And then once you find Grange, and as I said, Pythagoras wrote the Bible, and I knew when he came up with the virgin birth, it had to be something astronomical. Because as I was saying to you, the light finishes on Luke. And in Luke, Jesus the Son says to his 12 disciples, the Zodiac, follow that man carrying the water carrier into his house. And of course, the water carrier is Aquarius. And we are now in Aquarius. And getting back to those stone circles, because it's important, and the crop circles, sorry, because to me, the stone circles were built on sites. These crop circles are ancient. I believe the stone circles were built on top of these crop circles. So, and like I said, it's exactly 440 years ago. But what I then decided to do, I decided to look further back and see if there was anything else that connected to this site, Meon. And I looked back a year and I found this site in France, funnily enough. I don't believe again in coincidence, a place called Vimy. And its nearest river is Meuse. Now, if you look again as a cipher, Meuse, my 6. So again, it's the waters talking, and the crop circle there is a Malta cross. And again, Albert Pike, he says it is connected to the tropics, 23, 27, which is none, to flow, to become, to think, to remember, to rest, to be soiled, the sea, a large river. And again, the large river there is the river Meuse. And when you look back at where it comes from, its origin is Irish, Moas, M-O-A-S. And when you look at, switch it around, you've got Mosa. Again, Mosa is Mohammed. And Mohammed, we need to go back to the Lycée Esther, because the name Mohammed is taken out of the book of Esther. Because Hamed Ather means father number time. You have the Mohammed on front, means my number time. And so whoever wrote it, it's something there which the time is up. The truth is coming out. And it's the crop circles with the geometry that's been left in the stone circles as well, because that's been revealed as well. There's a lot of people doing a lot of important work on the megalith. And then after the one in Vimy, as I say, is connected to Moses. Moses as well, and also Amos. And he was he was a shepherd farmer again, which connects us to Meon and the river Meon in the shape of the shepherd's staff, and also it's Soma. So the Soma all comes from the water, and then I followed it again, and I found after the river Meon, it was towards the equinox on the 15th of the 8th this year at Oliver's Castle. This is why I sent you that tune, Olive, because it's just so fits in. And the nearest river is the Avon. And the Avon, again, comes from the Irish, Avan. And the Avon, the sweet son of Avon, is Francis Bacon. And also the nearest town is Devizes. And if you look at it, D-V-I-S-E-S again, D666. D must have been down there. He was everywhere, because a great story of his is because one of the things I posted today is the connection between D Masonry and Francis Bacon. There's an engraving that Francis Bacon did of D handing the light of masonry over to Francis Bacon, and it's over an empty grave, basically showing the soul's immortal death is just an illusion. And as I say, again, it all fits in with Ezekiel 660 skies, Moses my 66, and as well, we do not forget the Essenes, because the Essenes, again, they understood, they knew the source. The Essenes again used the Shakespeare hyphen, and you can see 66 Aleph 6. They were there, and it's not again next year in June we find 3 dates of 666. The 6th of June, the 15th, because that's 6 days before the equinox, and the 27th, which is 6 days after the solstice. Sorry. And also as well, what I looked into, I thought, okay, what about is it talking Hebrew gematria? And so I thought, okay, as well, I worked out the numbers. 15th of 8, 2021 equals 28. And the gematria for 28 is Father is renowned, to tangle, to perplex, of gold, a place rich in gold. Yah presents, to be clear, transparent. And it's like I say, contact has been made, and the contact is with water. I need to have another. So, thank you. Yeah, and then again, once I followed that, and then the difference from the first at Vimy to Devizes is 406 days, and the 406. And I've got to thank Bill Heinrichs, because it's his Hebrew gematria table that I'm using. And the 406 gematria is God made, to cut in, to engrave, to come, a stumbling, a fall. God has made. And this is the Hebrew. I'm not making this. This is the numbers. Again, as Dr. Empirical scientific evidence that not water just doesn't have memory, but it's connected with consciousness as well. Then it shows with all of these crop circles that water is becoming more conscious. And then after that, I was wondering what happened. Where is it happened? Yeah, and then by following the gematria, on the 25th of the 8th, at Little Knutsford, a direction of Hod Hill, which is an old hill fort, Blackmore Vale, and the gematria is 38, and it says God's training, will of God, to flow, off, or ebb, to vanish, to spring up, issue forth, to produce, to make bare, to strip, uncover, and its valley of vision. Disclose, reveal, open, open up. And again, all the gematria, like I say, I'm not making this up. This is all the numbers. And when you put in the gematria with what the crop circles are, because the crop circles that finished up there is an image of the sun. And also as well, one of the other images that was there is of a circle that you've got, and the inner circle is broken, because we don't need a revolution. What we need to break the circle. We need to break the cycle. And this is why the inner cycle, the inner circle has been broken. We need to break this. And really it's up to Masons to stand up for what's happening, what they're doing. Bush, Blair, Netanyahu, amongst others, amongst many others, are doing to Masonry, because they've turned the light into darkness. And what Dee and Pythagoras, because it can be the Brotherhood was created by Pythagoras. And as you see, all of the initiation, I've been working on some of the, just to give you an idea, I've been working on some of the secret names in Masonry, and they all can be traced back to, as I say, with the two pillars, as we get, as I said, Boaz, which is the pillar here in Rennes-les-Bains, and the pillar at Rennes-le-Château where the Virgin Mary is on, is jacking the sun. And jacking is Jachi in Aleph. Again, it's a cipher. And Boaz means out of, from the thrust of the cow. And again, what came out of the thrust of the cow? The torrid meteorite shower, 10,500 BCE. What happened? It wiped out what was before. And it was the rebirth after this comet impact of all that were the people that were here before. And the evidence now is emerging slowly all around the planet. And even if you go to Egypt, for example, look at some of the names in Egypt. They all can be traced back to Irish. Hathor is Irish Athger, which means to recall. This is what it's all about. It's about to recall. Amana, where Akhenaten had his main city. Amana is Irish for time in plural, showing us the circle needs to be broken, but it's been broken because time is out of sync. We need a calendar that takes in the sun and the moon. It's binary, sun, moon. That's why it's Jachin and Boaz. It's sun and moon. They both need to be worked together. And we need a new calendar. And we need a new educational system, because getting on to one of the problems that we do have, and this is going back to Francis Bacon again, one of the engravings he left behind is called In Dies Meliori, which means better things to come. And in it, it's got an A in light and an A in shadow. And the A in light is Athena and Apollo. And the A in shadow is Aquinas and Aristotle. Because all the science we have now is based on Aristotle and Aquinas. All the scientists, you ask them, they'll say that their roots are Aristotle and Aquinas. Even if they're not Catholics, they'll tell you this. This is what the philosophy is based on. This is what the education system is based on. It's producing people who look for the point in the circle and miss the circle that is surrounding them. And the circle is a symbol of infinity. It has no beginning and it has no end. And one of the problems, and this goes back to a friend of mine, Michael Maloney, who was at UMIS, the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology. In 1969, on Britannia Corner, he came, and I said to him, "What are you doing? What are you studying?" And he says, "Oh, we're doing about black holes, wormholes, and white holes." And we got talking and everything, and I suddenly got thinking in my head, he started describing black holes, and I said, "Well, with a white hole, that explains the center of a galaxy. In the center of a galaxy is a white hole. The black hole sucks in the energy, it goes through a wormhole into the center of the galaxy in a white hole." But we've got this idiot Stephen Hawking, and I read, this friend of mine who's a scientist said to me, "Have a read of this Brief History of Time." I read it in a day, and I went back and I said, "Where is all the energy gone?" He doesn't explain where the total amount of energy absorbed by a black hole goes. And then about 2 years later, he comes up with a lame excuse. Oh, there's an escape of radiation. It still doesn't explain the total energy absorbed by a black hole. And we go back to Shakespeare, Francis Bacon again, a great play, Twelfth Night, and where we find the first use of the word singularity. And the character Malvolio says, I want to be a singularity. And that word brings on the onset of lunacy. He's put in a prison, and in prison is taught, is said, and is confronted about the immortality and Pythagorean teachings, and he denounces it, and he's kept in prison for even longer as a lunatic. And all these people, Hawkins, Richard Dawkins, he's another one, Selfish Gene, he's never even taken into account RNA. They're all idiots. The reductionist Aristotelian Aquinans, they're still working for the Roman Catholic Church in their minds, even though they say they're not, even though they say they're atheists, they're liars. They're working according to Aristotle and Aquinas. And like I say, once you look at the center of the galaxy being a white hole, and all that energy from a black hole goes through, and I think it's something to do with plasma, through a wormhole into the center, that explains the spin. If there was a black hole, like some idiots have said, oh, there's a black hole out there, there's a black hole at the center of the galaxy, where does the spin come from? If the black hole's at the center of the galaxy, it's absorbing everything. But when I saw some of the images that were from the center of the galaxy, to me, it shows something coming out. It doesn't something being absorbed in. And their interpretation is Aristotelian Aquinal based. But when you've got a Pythagorean Platonic mind and you look at the interconnectedness between everything, then you understand the way to understand black holes is by geometry. Put the golden ratio round around a black hole with the physics, and you'll suddenly find out the wormhole and the white hole as well. But the science is based on this Aristotelian Aquinan, and the whole education is as well. Everybody is taught to think and reduce everything to a point. And this is why everybody's put into a debt prison. Again, it's this Aristotelian philosophy. Get you into a prison, put you into debt. This is one thing my father taught me not to get into. Don't get into debt. I was about to I'd saved up enough money to buy a building plot for £3,000. This was in England. And I went to my father because just before that, about 3-4 years, a brother Mason of his, Eddie Keach, they both said to me, do you want a job? So I says, yeah, okay. And so I went off to Winterton, this town nearby, and there was this lines marked out in chalk and rope. And he said, dig out that. You've got a day. And he left me, just with me pack up and a flask with a cup of tea in. And the first day I dug out all of that, my hands were red raw. The second day the concrete came and they had a great vibrator, which is like a dildo. And you've got to put this into the concrete so you get the air out. And my hands after that were red and raw. And then after that, after a few days after the concrete had set and everything, I was put on the mixer. And first of all came the bricklayers, then came the joiners, then came the plasterers, then came the electricians, then came the roofers. And I was there labouring for all the trades as they came along. And funnily enough, Francis Bacon says this is what should be done. You should do this, build a house. And I was the one doing the bloody labouring, building this house. And so I got this idea. I'd save £3,000 up. I could do the labouring again and get all these people in to help me build the house. My father said to me, no, you've got more important things to do than that. And what had happened about, as I say, maybe about 3 years before that, he got us a council house, and he was a Conservative. And the council was totally Labour, very much like in America, Republicans and Democrats. My father would have been a Republican in America, and the council would have been run by Democrats. And I said, how did you get us a council house? They're all Labour and you're Conservative. Oh, he says, that doesn't matter in our club. And it was a brilliant house. It did us for so many years. I ended up selling it, moving to Ireland where my roots were. And making enough money in Ireland and what I'd made in England to eventually move down here in France, because the pull was just too much down here. For example, when I was in Hull, I used to go to ABC cinemas, and I used to go along Ferrens Way. And here is Montferrand, and Fer is iron, Ren, Fer is Irish for measuring rod. So Ferrens Way, the iron measuring rod to Fens. And I was there walking it in my childhood. It was all there. And if you go on Google Earth and you look at, say, Hull, for example, go down on Google Earth and look for the A's that are there in the city. Go into Scunthorpe on Riddings Estate. And Riddings comes from Rid Hamner. This is where we get Hamlet. Rid Hamner means Crown Prince. And on the Riddings Estate there's 2 AAs. The houses are built to 2 AAs, ancient and accepted. It's there in the landscape. People can't argue about it. It's irrefutable. It's there on Google Earth for anybody to look. All you've got to do is look. Just exactly the centre of Washington has been built according to geometry. There's a Pythagorean triangle, like in every Masonic lodge. This is why, going back to the church at Rennes-le-Château, when you go from the G to the A to the R, you create a Pythagorean triangle. When you go from the Luke to the Antoine to the Mary, you create another Pythagorean triangle. When you create Grand Master Architect, there's 3 Pythagorean triangles. And you look, like Plato says in the Timaeus, 1, 2, 3, my dear Timaeus, but where is the 4th? And like I said, Dr. John T says, use 3, and then where is the 4th? And then you use A, ancient and accepted. To the young Scottish boy, you've got your 4th triangle there in the church. And every Masonic lodge has a Pythagorean triangle in it. And it all goes, and when you even go to Egypt and work Pythagorean triangles in Egypt, everywhere they're there. And like I say, the Irish language is there, first in a manner. And also, if you look, as I was saying, Pythagoras wrote about the virgin birth for a reason. And I had this theory in 2012. I thought, okay, Pythagoras, you wrote about a virgin birth. I wonder if, and Bacon has wrote about the left pap. And I'd followed the standing stone from Cork to Kerry and the paps of Anu. And it just so happened my daughter and her partner had this house at a place called Brewsterfield. And it was there exactly facing the Yoni, where my theory was the sunrise between the paps of Anu. And I went there 2012. First of all, before I went and I put into my stellarium. I thought, look, from the Templar Church, as I mentioned, says, age time of 6. And it's there in Greece and in Egypt. And I put a line from the Templar Church to the winter solstice, what was happening then, because I won't be in France. And what happened then, from the Templar Church, Virgo was rising above the col de Paradis, Virgo the Virgin. And there's the planets with the moon lining up to a left breast. In the Shakespeare plays, it talks about the left pap. The left pap of Virgo was pierced by, so obviously Bacon had obviously with D worked out what was going to happen in 2012. And that is what happened. Virgo was pierced. That was the sign. Pythagoras says, look for signs in the heaven. That was the beginning of the age of Aquarius. I went to Ireland with my theory. I sat there on the 27th, clouds everywhere. The water, the watchers just wouldn't let us see. And then the next day, just for 10 minutes, there it broke. The sun came through, the clouds parted, and I got a photograph, and I can't find it now. I need to go back this year. And there it is. The sun, Jesus, Ezu, Iesa, Krishna, is born from the paps of Anu. And going again, connecting to Egypt, Anubis is the god who looks after the dead. And Bis is Irish for spiral. So it's the spiral of Anu. So it's the sun. On the 21st of December, every winter solstice, there rises the sun from the yoni, from the sacred geometry of the breasts of Anu. And also that name Anu has been taken to Babylon, and the god of thunder there, the sky god, is called Anu. They've taken a female Irish god and turned it into a male god. And also, Anu is connected, again, as I don't know if I mentioned Jules Verne, because he's very important in this story. And and as well, Diendara, which is the temple to Hathor. Diendara means the place to meet. So it was a place to meet. And what they would have done, they would more than likely taken the hallucinogens and something like that. It would have been a time to clear the mind and recall, as that Hathor is Irish to recall.
But we've only got about 10 or 15 minutes left at the most. Now, I wanted to ask you about something that might seem off the cuff, but I've noticed a few things in like modern, like you were with modern Shakespearean literature. I don't know if you can see on the private chat, I put some lines up there from Jethro Tull's song, The Cup of Wonder. And I was wondering if you could give me your opinion on this. Particularly, you just mentioned the Standing Stones. I'll go to the second one I put up. In the song, he says, ask the green man where he comes from. Ask the cup that fills with red. Ask the old gray standing stones that show the sun its way to bed. Can you find a connection to with what you've been talking about this whole show with the Standing Stones and all the other type of?
Well, yeah. The green man, again, going back to Egypt, the green man is Osiris, and when you use the Shakespeare hyphen Os Iris, Os is Irish, means above or beyond. Re means king, and C is fairy mound. So it means the king above, beyond the fairy mound. And the fairy mound, as I've shown, is Cardu. Because going to Jules Verne, in Journey to the Centre of the Earth, it says you have to speak scar at it. And that, when you look at it, is keep out of the cars. And cars is Cardu. And like I said, Jules Verne was a member of the Secret Society, but he's a Pythagorean. I posted a photograph, and funny, this photograph of him has on it released for 2022. And it's Jules Verne with a 5-pointed Pythagorean star there. And that, I don't know if I've sent you that one, that came in England, the crop circle with a, and there's no way that it can have been reproduced by anybody because it's using non-Euclidean geometry. And this is what I've been so interested in since I was younger, because I used to play football, and I based my football on the Brazilians, and the capital of Brazil is made according to non-Euclidean geometry. And I got in trouble once with my math teacher when he was talking about the parallel lines and Euclid. And I said, well, look, if you take parallel lines out into space, they're going to bend and meet together. He threw a rubber at me. But now, non-Euclidean geometry, we know the parallel lines, that's what broke down. That's why we have non-Euclidean geometry, because the parallel lines, once you take them out into space, they bend because of space-time, and the parallel lines eventually meet. So that blew Euclidean geometry out. Just exactly the whole Stephen Hawking's ridiculousness about the one-sided singularity. He'll be looked on in the future as a madman, just as Richard Dawkins will be. Richard Feynman, another madman, totally lunatic. The only one among them who had any brains was Einstein, and the guys who worked with quantum physics, especially Wolfgang Pauli. He's really interesting because he said, and he worked with Carl Jung, he said that all of his knowledge and understanding of quantum physics came through his dreams. And then Feynman says anybody who understands quantum physics is a lunatic. Well, Wolfgang Pauli, who came up with it, says he got it through his dreams. Who's the lunatic?
Yeah.
I'd say Feynman's a lunatic because he's another Aristotle and Aquinas. The same as Richard Hawkins and Stephen Hawking and Richard Dawkins. They're all tied with the same brush.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with what Hawking said. One thing he did say about aliens that it might not be so good for us if we were to actually meet them. So I do agree with that. But there's been some recent articles that were talking about that they think that the white holes are the other end of black holes, like you mentioned earlier in the show. And there's got, we know that there's balance in the universe. There's an in, there's an out, there's an on, there's an off.
Well, let me explain.
There's going to be another end to the black hole, and then I have to think we call them quasars also as a white hole.
Well, let me explain one thing, because this is about the paranormal. As I said, my auntie, who was the seventh son, came to me one day. She says, "You're into science, Trevor. Explain to me how we have this thing, how we can dream things that happen before they happen." Yeah. And I said, "Well, I've been reading this guy called David Bohm. It's called Wholeness and the Implicate Order. And what he explains is that the universe is unfolding. So what I said to her is, when you imagine you're on a seashore, you see the wave going from at a distance, starting to build up and unfold. Well, underneath that wave, going backwards quicker, is another wave. That is what we pick up. Anyone who has psychic abilities, you're picking up that undercurrent that is back before time is unfolded itself. So time is not linear, it's cyclical as well. That's why Amana is time in plural, because time is linear and cyclical, and we need a clock that's based on the sun and the moon.
Yeah, I don't actually think I agree with the fact that time is linear or even circular. I forget. I think it might be Bob Lazar who came up with this, but I think there's others too that say that most things' energy are all wave patterns, all wave generated. So gravity is a wave generation, light is wave generations, time is wave generation. So it ebbs and flows, but it doesn't go in a circle. It doesn't go in a straight line. That's just one side. It doesn't take into account a particle, because we know with light it separates into particles and waves. So just looking at it as a wave, you're forgetting about the particle. And quantum physics tells us that a particle can exist in the past, in the present, and in the future at exactly the same time. And this is what Francis Bacon says do. And this is what Masons do at every lodge meeting. They take the past, bring it into the present, and send it up to the future. But let me tell you one thing that I did with the geometry. Because my father said, if you've got to beat them, you've got to beat them at their own game. So 9 years ago, what I did, I didn't use the site of the Little Bighorn. What I did, I used what I think is the observation site where Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull planned the battle. And then I took the line to a cross that's in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is Scotta, an Irish, and Scotland is named after, but she was an Egyptian princess. And then what I did, working from Boston all the way, New York, Philadelphia, all the way to the East Coast, all the Masonic lodges, I tied in to the site of the observation of the Little Bighorn. And this year was exactly 145 years ago on the 25th of June. So, light will be coming soon.
Hey guys,
the same as they do, because that's what we're doing with 9/11. They were working the geometry, the numbers, and what it was shock horror tactics to make everybody believe the scapegoat. Because this is why the scapegoat is in the Bible, because the scapegoat is being used, and Iraq was the scapegoat. And now I see that there's some American lawyers suing Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is just the top of the layer. And we need to go back to this guy, Philostratus. He wrote the life of Apollonius of Tyana. And Apollonius is Apollon, Apollo, Paul. All the books of Paul were written by Apollonius of Tyana, who was just another incarnation of Pythagoras. And he was the teacher of light that the Essenes talked about, the teacher of righteousness.
Hey, Trebha, we got to end the show. It's been great having you on. We got like 1 minute left. Do you have a link or anything? But it's been great. Is this the first time you did a show?
I'm up for any other that you want to do. If anybody wants to contact me, just go on Facebook and Trebha Cooper and just send a friend request.
All right, we appreciate it so much knowledge, the knowledge of wizards. Love it. Thanks so much.
Well,
And
I've been taught by some good people. I've had good teachers along the way.
It's definitely been fascinating. We had a lot of good comments in our from our viewer audience. Thanks so much, and we'll be in touch and have you on again sometime. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Okay, good night. Good talking to you.
All right, good night, everybody. United Public Radio. Next week, Cristo Rupolo, Curse of the Man That Sees UFOs. You don't want to miss that. And if you haven't seen that documentary, he's also got another one called The Man Who Sees UFOs. So check it out. Everybody have a good weekend. Good night, everybody. ChurchofMabusRadio.com. ChurchofMabusRadio.com. Good night, Jay. Good night, Joe.
Good talking
Good night,
to you.
Trebha. Good night.
Good sharing the information.